Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. And today, as we take our travel log around these fantastical earthly places, we are going into Icelandic, Greenlandic locations. We've gone up north, up the coast of the States, and now we're heading into Iceland. And we are going to take a look at a Viking emulator, a game known as Iskloft. The links are down in the doobly-doo, and I will probably post a link in the chat as we talk about this game. We do a page-through review of brutalistic Viking, heavily modified 5th edition fantasy game known as Iskloft. Hello, everybody. Was this comment about a favorite fast track to cancellation? I hope not. This game, tabletop role-playing game, as we talk about all these tabletop role-playing games, are an embrace an emulator, the culture of a particular time period. Yeah, calling any study emulator is an instant turn off to me. Those are just my words. Don't listen. Don't take my particular opinion as fact. It is the idea, and don't get caught up in language, right? It's just a rose is still a rose by any other name. I appreciate creators that are a fan of. Maybe it's a cultural touch point or history or a festival or activity or I don't know, it could be the arts or sciences, whatever, of a particular culture, including and embracing some of the darker aspects we would consider today, and then just letting it sit where it is, right? Like, while we've been going over these different games, like I brought up the movie 300 and how, I love the movie 300 about the 300 Spartans, but if you in the movie cinematic version of it, whether it's historical or not, they aren't necessarily the good guys, but they are the protagonists, and I appreciate that. Oh, Vikings are considered impermissibly politically incorrect by the wokerati over here. Yeah, you know what? It's we're going through our pendulum swing of culture. We always go through ultra conservative and then swing to the ultra liberal side of society, and we just happen to be going through that period of time now. I'm a person of a certain age who remembers like having gone through this a number of times, and there is no exception to this. So this game is one in which, and mind you, this isn't the only game. There's plenty of like Icelandic, Nordic, Viking style. I mean, it at one point it had hit the pop culture bubble of especially here in the States. And we're going to get into some of the recommended media before I start showing like the double page spreads of this. There's the creators and artwork, and then it goes into recommended media. And of course, we have here for television, Last Kingdom and Vikings, and both of those, and of course, Game of Thrones, right? And this was a period of time where that it hit the heyday of that, and so sometimes there can be a little bit of oversaturation when it comes to some of these things. But this was produced in 2019, and that 2019 to 2022 probably hit its peak for that period of time. But it does talk about some of the books such as Beowulf and whatnot. I like the fact that Sopranos was put in here, which I appreciate in this this tabletop role-playing game, explores codes of honor, tribalism, and masculinity, and how all of those sometimes we human beings are full of contradictions, and this book embraces the contradictions of like honor and tribalism and masculinity, and yet combining those things invariably leads to a spiral of death. Movies like The 13th Warrior, which I think is an underrated adventure movie. The 13th Warrior, similar to the movie 300 in the and the other books we've gone through, where you could do you consider this truly fantastic and arcane, or is it just the people think it's magic, but it's actually our modern day version, and people are just fooled into thinking that it's arcane? And the answer to that is yes. Right? It's the answer to that is both can exist at the exact same time. Like, do the people just believe it's magic, or is it really magic? And neither one of those matters, right? If everyone believes it's magic, it is. What is it? Perception makes reality. And so here's a table of contents. And up front in the table of contents, we get all the new modified rules. So if you're someone who's like, 5th edition, I roll, it's so heavily modified. I just call it fantasy D20. And I've been kind of referring to like FD20. Maybe the F part is I'm hitting it a little too hard. But yeah, it's just D20 with modifiers. It's basically a 5% system, if you want to go percentile wise. And but up front, it does tell you like this is a different world, expected to be a different place, and whatnot. And so I appreciate that. And when we get into like welcome, what the heck is going on, and I appreciate how a lot of indie games will do this up front. I like this about like, okay, what is this game about? What are the truths? Give me the rules of this world so that I can suspend my disbelief and replace it with the belief system of this world. I've brought this up before in the game Tales from the Loop, where you play children, and right up front before you even start the role-playing game, it's like, hey, your kids and the adults won't help you. Right up front, like, does it make sense the adults won't help you? No. But in the context of the thematic element of this world, yeah, you can't just run to the cops and say, hey, mom, dad, cops, help me out. It's not that kind of thing. Nameless, because I am old, just here to talk about a game, not too worried about public perception of it. Exactly. And again, you can't police other people's imaginations. No matter how much you dislike how they imagine it, you can't police other people's imaginations. So if you want to play a game, and a lot of these games have okay, I'm gonna say the word, air quotes, problematic elements in it, it wouldn't matter anyway, because the people playing the game will either include it in the game or dismiss it from that game, whether it belongs in that culture or historical context or doesn't. Shice, this is kind of different in Europe, where Nordic runes really are used by various subsets of bad guys. Same thing here, which casts shades on role players, medieval enthusiasts, heavy metal guys, and other legit Viking fans. Same thing here, right? Like the many of the iconography and the runic symbols here. Hell, even the Marvel superhero character, the Punisher's skull face has been like adopted, and the meaning of it has been transformed, even though that the Punisher's skull face, spray painted skull face on his chest, it's a really cool symbol, right? But people have taken it, just like they've taken the word woke and rephrased it, and it's the same thing. Yeah, there's a lot of like Viking iconography used here to represent like racial genetic superiority of a lighter folk versus the darker folk and stuff. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because if you're not associated with that and you've been a fan of one aspect of it, now you're getting lumped into the other aspect. And it's a little, people don't have nuance, so they're not going to listen to you. They're just going to be like, you mother... Yeah. I didn't realize I skipped the and time for new glasses. Oh, Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There, next spook. Yeah, the Punisher skull with the Trump hair. Yeah. Yeah, same here. Yep, I think the outrage these things can unleash is funny as fuck, which is why I always hate to talk about it. Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you because it's unfortunate because you can't get to the point, and it's difficult to have nuance. Okay, so welcome to Iskloft. Talks about safety tools. Gotta always have those kind of things in indie RPG games. Now, basically, like, can't we just have a conversation about what we want and don't want, and what we like to see and not like to see, and not judge other people for the things they want in their games. So in here we have Iskloft is a world of brutality. The changed rules for 5th edition, which has a lot of like soft guardrails to keep characters from dying, has been eliminated. Iskloft is about survival. There's a major chunk of this about like player characters could die traveling from one place to another. It's a brutal world. Iskloft is a world of tradition, and that tradition rubs up against is the friction of the survivalistic thing. Like, sure, it would be better for 5 of you to survive than 15 of you that have to scrape by because you have to, share food and whatnot. But if your traditions, your loyalty, your honor says that everybody has to live, all 15 of you may die on the way. And, it's that kind of thing, right? And the one person that makes the conscious choice, we got to leave 10 of us behind so 5 of us could live, is, air quotes, the evil one. Even though in the back of the minds of the people that did survive are just like, I'm glad you made that choice, but we're going to have to kill you at the end of this thing. World of superstition, and Iskloft is a fallen culture, so it does embrace, like, there's a dark undertone. This is fantasy, so there was once a better, more progressive culture underneath this one in this brutal cold land. And then Iskloft is a place of contradictions. So all the things I was talking about that mentioned is like, yeah, there's some hypocrisy amongst the folk here. And it is supposed to be that way. Let's see. So let's get this page spread here. Very difficult to read this. That there is one. I do have I guess a layout complaint about this, and I understand how it happened because if you start getting into layout, there is an art. The science of layout and the art of layout can rub each other the wrong way, and Paperweight has a issue, and I bet he picked a font to crush the size down. So if I have the physical book, it's not difficult to read it, but when you do a 2-page spread online, it's like, wait, what? I don't get that. And so it seems like you can't really read it, but with my old eyes, with a font that's crushed in a little bit against a grayish background, it can rub the eyes a bit. So a bright light really helps. Reading under a bright light really helps. It's not as stark as some other things. It's kind of like what is it? What's the Kindle? Paperwhite background where it's not really white. It tends towards gray. So these are all the different rules about stress. There's a stress mechanic, a torment mechanic. A torment mechanic is similar to sanity from doing brutal things. And there's a cost for being brutal in this world, and it can kind of drive you crazy. Basically, there's a bunch of Vikings running around with PTSD, and that no one else considers that you need to like solve that issue. And so your PC can turn into an NPC if you keep just doing brutal things because you think that's what your character should do. A lot of journey rules, using supply. Supply is basically like food and water and other things you need to survive in the land, and you could run out of that. Different climates and hunting. The game, let's see if I can explain this. This game is not really about dungeon crawling at all. The dungeon is overland, much like we talked about in the white box Aztec Maquahito. Hunting, survival, traveling from place to place is the game. So the dungeon itself could be traveling through a blizzard, crossing a frozen land, digging into the permafrost, hunting down deer. That is the game, and then it's the things that happen inside of that. And it talks, we have the different various terrains, mass combat rules, and setting up a shield wall. Talks about different, like, how to run mass combat, flow methods, the war game itself. And then there's, of course, dealing with death and bringing back other characters that belong in the character's life. So there's like a legacy. We haven't got to that, but there's a legacy issue where your character dies, and then the next character that comes along belongs to the friends and or family of the character that passed, and you can pass on your traits and other things that you gain during the adventuring phase onto the next person that comes along and whatnot. Here's a life path. We really don't see too many life path things in modern major games, but a lot of indie games, especially throwback games, have this. And so it can be fun to roll up a life path. It's depending on what's there. If it's a little gonzo, sometimes it can be a little bit hard. But even Traveler, they're fans of the sci-fi game Traveler, and where your character can die in character creation. This isn't it. This isn't like you're building your character numerically, but you get to have it throws conflict into the character with rolling a bunch of d6s, and that's not bad. So yeah, life path things in here. Family. I'm just looking at this randomly, like law breaking, cruelty and tragedy, family sagas, great crafter, raid and war, life path events, adventure song, childhood results, things like that, just to round out what happened in your past or your family's past that are affecting you now. And then we get into character classes and backgrounds, and instead of different races, like elf, and I'm talking about tabletop games, instead of different races or species and whatnot, you take on an ethnicity. So you may be from the north, you may be from the south, you may be from the mountains, you may be from the plains, or whatever. And so your character, that takes the place of being an elf or dwarf or halfling or gnome in this world. So, and there are some traits that you get for being in that culture. So if that culture values strength, you may get a bonus to your strength stat because they value that. And then if you know, so on and so forth. And then it even gives you, like, right across the top, so you don't have to like read deep into it, there are these touchstone elements. So you can go, oh, okay, I'd like to play this, I'll butcher the pronunciation, Asbladur, which are hardy, generous, wary, defensive, and stubborn people, whereas a Gunderlander is a warlike, wealthy, elite, inheritors, and gregarious, and whatnot. There's also a bit of background, historical context to these ethnicities. I don't know I'm trying to think of another name to call them. And so that if you belong to that group or come from that group and you want to break tradition, it's like, well, the people are thought of to be this way. Your personal character might not be that way, but other people will assume you are that way unless proven otherwise. Or maybe they're just closed-minded. They could give a shit about changing their mind about you, having prejudices and whatnot, and falling into those prejudices too, right? We know in our own cultures, when we break tradition, the people within that own culture look at you like, why are you out? Why are you breaking tradition? You should be acting like the rest of us. And it's the same thing here. The Castellaners are innovative, cosmopolitan, savvy, unorthodox, aloof, whereas Sunderfurderers, Soder, Fjorder, prosperous horsemen, kneelers, explorers, traders. Yeah. If you're someone who doesn't like the idea of hunting animals, you're not going to like this game either, because there's like hunting and tanning rules and things like that. So Yeah, you might if you'd like to play the game and you want to like what is it, lines and veils, that part of it, you better say that up front. Um, so anyway, these are the ethnicities, and then we get the others. The berserker had to hit that in red, didn't you? But anyway, I appreciate the fact that they did. The layout is 2-page spreads, so if you open up the page, then at least it sticks to the one thing. This part with the red banner is where we get into character classes, so you can combine your character class, or ethnicity with the vocation that you've picked. And of course, you're going to have barbarian types, and playing berserkers and what that calls for, and how they believe themselves to embody the animals that they are. There's a number of movies that have come out since 2019 that I think kind of emulate this as well. The Drengr, skilled, brave, versatile, respected. I believe these are the fighter version in this world. A lot of these character classes have been taken apart and reassembled. So you might be a fighter, but you probably have some like survivalistic skills. You might be a berserker, but it doesn't mean that you just froth at the mouth. You do have like a connection to Odin and the natural world, and a lot of what we consider to be traditional in Dungeons and Dragons, like druids and clerics and whatnot. A lot of those things have been dismantled and subtly placed into the other warrior classes, so that those aspects still exist, but not in a traditional sense of being a wizard or a fantasy D20 cleric or warlock or something like that. The Krieganger are survivors, loners, tenacious, world-wise, pragmatic. You're getting into a little bit of the ranger rogue version type of character here. And I'm going to get to your comments in just a moment. Here we go. I gotta go backwards a little bit. Here we go. The Southern Vikings really were way different, more normal, because they had way more contact with the rest of the world. So it must be more fun to roleplay the Northern ones. Yeah, I bet. And again, while these are not historical, the historical accuracy can be off, because it still has to be a game. You still have to interact with it. It is kind of cool to play, dare I say, aliens when we get into these different cultures. And yes, I understand that there is a subset of people that can get pretty upset, especially if you are a true historian, or you come from a still living culture, or you come from a culture that's been derided and derailed over history, and keeps getting things wrong, and you're just like, no, but the people weren't like this and that or the other. And but I still think it's cool to emulate that, especially if it's very different from the way we live. It's an escape, and yes, we can escape as cyborgs or aliens from Alpha Centauri, but sometimes it's just to put ourselves in the boots of other people, and I appreciate that. Scheisse continues and says, the ones who discovered Greenland and ended up landing in Canada, for example, do you think they knew much about Europe? Or did they just know the far north and just headed out to sea one day? I don't know. And of course, that's another thing about cultures and whatnot, right? Like, there was no internet, it's like from the outside, sure, we can make sense of a thing and go, well, it would make sense if they did or did not do this thing. But when you're within it, you don't know. Today, I'm sure there's plenty of things that in the future humanity will go, why did they do that? Didn't they know better? And maybe there's some people who are thinking like, yeah, maybe we should have known better. But whatever. The Hesir or Hesser, leader, tactical, inspiring, respected, wealthy. I believe these are like if I had to put a name on it, they are like the marshal, the paladin of this culture. See how right here it's like banner bearer, tactician, the warlord, and it kind of fits into that category. Maybe a little bardic if I have, and I'm saying these things as a gamist versus the culture of it. And then here's the outlaws: exiled, unfettered, marked, cheaters, and alone. These are the rogues of the culture, and unfortunately, many of them are marked or branded, either tattooed or actually branded as outlaws, and so there is a stigma against being an outlaw. Although outlaws are needed in the culture, again, the hypocrisy, right? Like you need someone to assassinate or steal something or sneak into another thing, even though they're technically outcasts. There are people, culture, factions that will use them, and so these are rat catchers and outsiders and murderers and things like that, they've already broken the culture code. So to get them to do something for you and go like, well, I didn't murder, kill that person, but you sure did pay somebody or send someone to do it. Or they're an outcast because they broke a societal code, and they're trying to figure out a way to make amends for it with the gods and whatnot. Sadir, mystical, feared, wise, powerful, and canny. And then here we get into the magics. A lot of the magics in this game have been turned into, they have either a heavy cost, or they're ritualistic, or they are, you become a medium for the magic. You invite the spirits, the Norns, the gods into you, and then they work through you. So then your character's personality changes, and there might even be a slight physical change. Tougher, stronger, less fearful, that kind of thing. The Heftir, Shield-wise, Gundelanders. I believe these are the Shield Maidens. I can't remember. Yep. These are the Nordic shield maidens, and with special abilities. And I believe you can play a male individual that are into these categories, that can play into these categories and things like that. Animalistic powers and whatnot. And it even talks about the hypocrisy about magic. We'll get into magic. Where are we, page 59? Yeah, we'll pay 67 is magic. And it does talk about the hypocrisy of magic, where those who are known to be oracles and magic and have connection to otherworldly powers are hated, yet they beseech these individuals to help them out with their powers and whatnot. And of course, can you hide? How long can you hide the fact that you rely on these individuals? Maybe your tribe or culture or whatever embraces it, where others are fearful and want to murder, kill those individuals. And why do you trust your people that have magic, but you don't trust other people, because that makes you a hypocrite? And so we have the backgrounds. We've seen this before in Dungeons & Dragons, having backgrounds like apprentice, crafter, the marked. The marked background is the one for outlaws. And I believe even I do appreciate this. Like there's like the cursed and the marked. Like for example, under the marked, you are marked in some way, perhaps by the gods. Perhaps you have survived an event that has left you scarred in some way, or perhaps you've been through a supernatural event that has left a mark on your body. Disease and sickness, or chance of birth, whatever it is, you have an unusual appearance that can leave others awestruck, superstitious, or fearful. And so, yeah, there's a lot of like, in our modern day, we might consider things like birth defects, or someone who suffered an injury after a cataclysm, or a brutal battle or whatever, and because it happened at a particular time or place, or looks funny, or makes you sound strange, things like epilepsy and whatnot are like, there's judgment, and so that exists here. Just like the cursed, although being cursed and being a farmer, maybe I prefer to be a farmer, although the warrior cast will probably look at you like, man, how many warriors did you bring? What is your profession? I am a blacksmith. Yeah. Spartans. Kind of like that. Carls and Jarls, hunters, thrall. I'm a thrall. Yeah, there is classism in this game, and is unapologetic about it. And you can also play into that, right? Like, if you're a thrall, a servant, a lesser folk, maybe you're in more of a merchant or something, and you're not a warrior class. Maybe some of the other warriors ignore you because they don't really think that you're dangerous and whatnot. You play into that. Magic, Odin's Song of Spells, and I like the way this is broken down here. Like, magic is subtle, so if you believe the magic, it is there, but you're not going. There are no fireballs. There are no. I mean, some people may think they see spirits or the magics or feel it, and then there's others that are just like, you're just talking out of your ass. Move out of my way, right? So there is a subtlety to, like, is there really magic or not? Also talks about the hypocrisy of magic, and how, again, the cultures are fearful and afraid and kind of think of magics as like anti-divine, but at the same time it does bless people. And then you can also bring in outside brutalistic elements into the real world. And then there's 3 types of magics. There's Odin's songs, there's a runatal, basically runic magic. So there's Odin's songs, runic magic, and what's the other one? If I can remember. Sorry. I do not know how to pronounce this word. Shit. The third kind of magic commonly seen in Iskloft is the one most feared, the one that is least welcome. It is known as SE, and then it's a ice Nordic thing. The Seath. It represents the power of women and the things that live beyond this world, and so it is no surprise that in Iskloft's hyper-masculine world, it is most feared. Practitioners of this art allow spirits and things from other worlds on the world tree to inhabit their body for a short time, channeling their power and using it for their own. It's a dangerous game to play, and more than one Sithkona has simply vanished, pulled into a pit by 100 hands, or burst into flames. So, yep, channeling magics and things. And then we get into the type of magic and the names of the magic. So let me see if I can let's pull this down here, and let's pick something short and sweet. We'll pick this first one, the song which shall set me free. And all the spells are like a name, a title, rather than like fireball or like acid arrow. Casting time, one reaction, self, instantaneous, and frequency. You can cast the spell a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier per short or long rest. You know the 4th secret song of Odin, sung to free yourself from any bonds which would hold you. When hit by an effect that applies a condition to you, you can use your reaction to spend a hit die and remove one of the following conditions from yourself: grappled, restrained, paralyzed, charmed, or frightened. And there are these costs in this game, such as spending your hit dice. If you're familiar with 5th edition, like if you're a 3rd level character, you would have 3 hit dice, and so it kind of represents your fatigue levels and whatnot. And instead of like spell levels and spell slots, you just gain some of these. And some of these are like this is an instant reaction, the song that shall set me free. But then there are others that are far more ritualistic. For example, but a glimpse of its flight is a 1-minute spell casting time, and the song which will have them wander bewildered takes 1 week. And frequency, you can use this spell once per full moon. So spells are kind of like gifts or feats in this world, rather than hey, I got a spell slot. Can't remember if I had the cover here or not. Let me get to some artwork, and then I'm going to get back to your comments. Many faces. It's spells and things like that can be a little bit like runeless, and carving the runes, items of power. And let me get to see if I can get to this map here. Which is, I was going to say this is more like Scandinavian, but when you see the map, let's see if I can get it turned in a direction. Nope, that's not what I'm trying to do. There we go. Okay. And then one page, because it's turned sideways, and I can't remember which way the computer program turns it. There we go. Increase the size of this. It's basically a big giant island. Fantastical island. Mateo says, I like low magic settings. Me too. And low magic and subtle. So in a weird way, the magic in the game, there are people who don't believe it's really magic in the first place. Which I suppose is a bit of a modern context, right? Like someone, is it me today putting myself in a trance and just convincing myself that sticking a needle through my arm and it doesn't hurt is a magical power? Or is that, could you explain it away? And so the magic can be kind of explained away as like a circumstance, a coincidence, luck. Yeah. Mateo says, the Bering Land Bridge once connected Russia to Alaska. Yep, and was a crossing point for some of the first humans to populate the Americas. And I believe it's been proven that the Nordic peoples, and I don't know what countries they came from, sailed up across the northern parts from northern Europe over to the Americas long before like the Christopher Columbus crossings. There was a movie called Pathfinder that really embraced that. It was kind of like filmed with like a grayish blue films over it and stuff. Shai says, the Paladins of Vikings, doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose? Because if you play a Viking, don't you not want to be prohibited from raping and pillaging? Yeah, there's a little bit of that, yeah. But were they really maidens in a strict sense of the word? I don't know historically, but in this game, not really. Not technically, no. Shai says, does thrall straight up mean slave in a strict sense of the word? I always thought there was more to it than that, like you're under someone's spell or enthralled. I could go back. The way I've heard it described, I didn't read it, or I don't remember reading it, but there's a number of actual plays, and it's more, let me explain this. It has different definitions. So some people understood their position as a thrall, like if they were captured after a battle, and so they embraced their thralldom, if that makes sense. Like, yes, we were defeated. Yes, I got captured. Yes, I understand that I'm, air quotes, in servitude. And so they don't, they're not chained up. They're not fighting it. They're like, yeah, I'll play my part until maybe my people come and either rescue me, or I get an opportunity to get out of my position, or like commoners would just go like, yeah, I guess I'm a thrall now. Then there are others who are literal slaves, like chained up, beaten, emotionally and psychologically like beaten down until they serve. And then lastly, there are the enthralled, like you're saying, like they feel like the gods have and the spirits have manipulated their servitude so that they are hypnotized. Now, is it real or not? The answer to that is yes. Blood magic, sacrificing people. Yep, there is that in here in this game. Yeah, and bad guys possess powerful magic that the players do not understand fully and must learn about it. Yep. Definition: if you are enthralled to someone or something, or in the thrall of someone or something, he, she, or it has a lot of power to control you. Think of vampire thralls. Yeah, exactly. Like, you have control, except for, right? There's the asterisks of living where it's like, yeah, I've got control, except when I do this, when I'm tasked to do this other thing. I can run around the, I don't know what you call, like the city state or the tribe, except for the fact that I can't leave. And then, is that a physical barrier or is that a psychological barrier? And the answer to that is yes. As you can, this is the hand-drawn style map. So, like, spaces, the space of this map, it can be interpreted. And I sure did spin it a strange way. I believe this is the southern portion of the map, and the reason why I considered this like more like Greenland, Iceland, is that it's like a big giant island continent as described within the game, and so yeah. And the southern portion isn't really that warm, so Iskloft, Asblood. So this is the northern portion of the map, and so as you can tell, this northern portion of the map does go off up into the northern icy reaches that can't be reached. And then the southern portion, sorry, going to page back up here. The southern portion of this map right here is, while there are mountains and things, there are far more forests and whatnot. And there's a lot of coastline. So you can do a lot of sailing and the classic, shields lining the sides of the ships and crash upon the shores of a rocky place and whatnot. So yeah, let me see, am I going the right direction here? And let me turn this back around. And here's the description. A thrall's a slave. A thrall's a slave, generally enslaved as prisoners of war, incurring debt, or being born into the class via their parents. Thralls have no rights, and their living conditions vary greatly depending on their master. The thrall trade is a key part of Iskloft's economy, and in every part of the country they exist, unseen and unnoticed by many, doing all the menial tasks the freemen don't want to do themselves, i.e. you're invisible. A thrall can be freed by their master at any time, even after their master's death, if decreed within a will, or they can even buy their own freedom if they somehow earn the necessary money. Once a thrall is freed, they become a freeman instead of a slave, but aren't quite a bondie. Not sure exactly what that means. Nor a full member of normal Iskloft society. They may vote at the thing, capital thing, but do so, capital T thing, but do so with owed allegiance to their former master. A freed thrall and their offspring remain so until 2 generations have passed. In this way, the great-grandchild will finally be a bondie. If the freeman dies before this, their lands will be inherited by their former master. And then it talks about gender roles and sexuality in Iskloft. Iskloft's society is surprisingly egalitarian, and women have the same rights as men in every instance. I don't know how historically accurate this is, but in this fantasy realm, this is the way it is. However, Iskloft is based on the real-world Viking age. Although it's believed that Viking culture was more egalitarian than most cultures of the time, it was, like nearly every culture on Earth, a patriarchal society in which women's roles were often boiled down to securing alliances and providing heirs. Female jarls are not unheard of, and women are found in every walk of life, from smith to merchant to warrior. Once married, women are often expected to focus much of their attention on the household and any children produced from the marriage. Nonetheless, it's considered quite normal in many parts of Iskloft for unmarried women to go raiding, and girls receive the same martial training as boys from their parents to ensure that when the warriors go raiding, the town is able to defend itself. And it makes a lot of sense, right? And again, going back to my you can't police other people's imaginations, no matter your opinion of that, you either can accept it or change it as you wish. It doesn't matter. uh, like you could say, well, that wasn't historically correct, and you go, okay, but in my game, this is the way we're running it. Or you could say, I'm getting rid of it, and I don't care how historically correct it is. And yet again, you go, all right, well, that's, if I choose to play in this game in your world and you're running it, then I'll abide by the collective, and we'll go forward from there. You can't police my imagination. This talks about many of the cultural things. Again, thralls and sexuality and gender and government and oaths and religion. This goes into how would you run it in your game, some of the presuppositions, and going into a lot of like the gods, culture, magic. Here is to the left is a way to randomly come up with different kinds of appeasement to the gods, festivals, celebrations, and whatnot. So if I were to roll a 10 on a d20 and read this across, there's something at the end of summer. It involves an unwilling person as a sacrifice to the god of Fenrir, and meat is left out for the wolves. And so you can mix and match many of these appeasements. Like, what season does it happen? What is the sacrifice? What does it appease, or which world or spirit or god, deity or saint does it appease? And what is the offering? Like, is it blood smeared on faces? Is blood left out to rot and sent to enemies? Is it buried in a tomb of a hero? Do you sacrifice a jarl's dog, or a pair of snakes, or a bull, or a stallion, or 3 pregnant cows, or something like that? It's a bunch of that, and you can mix and match it as well for that, to get into that. Again, like I said, if that bothers you, you might not. You might either want to go like, hey, everybody, could we just like fade to black on this kind of stuff, or just not play this game. Also talks about cosmology, about Asgard, Midgard, Niflheim, and Jotunheim, and these other places in the World Tree. And then we get into our foes, animals, bears, boars, of course, enemies, other Vikings and things like that. Some of these are there's a good image. There we are. Yeah, right here to the right. Like, are there supposed to be wolves that big? Well, maybe not. But if we all believe we fought a wolf that big, maybe that wolf really was that big. So yeah, there's a bit of fantasy in this as well. And then of course we have other people. Mostly humans are sometimes the worst monsters out there. And so we've got different things like the champions, and there's the stats for them, and the stats and the stat blocks and some of their actions and reactions. And like if we take a look at these stat blocks and talk about other warriors, there's like a deadly champion, there's a major and champions, minor champions. They don't even have the stats. It'll just be like strength +4, dex +3. It just has the numbers there, so that if you're running these as a game master, you can just go directly to what they can do, how many hit points they have, what their armor class is. And then we have others like outlaws, reavers, some of the most bloodthirsty individuals marked by the gods. I know I'm not mispronouncing this. Sadir? Butchering that. Semi-mystics out there defending the woods. We've got leaders, of course, carls and jarls, townsfolk, and then talks about some monsters such as giants. Jotna. And let me get to trolls, things, spirits, being tasked to do things from spirits playing games, some of the undead. Let me get to some artwork here. Or I'll stop right here because I want to get to your comments more specifically. Theer. There we go. Nicholas Dawson. Hey, what's up? Yeah, a major player in this. Hopefully saw the Iskloft thumbnail, decided to come in. We're doing a travel log of our Earth with role-playing games that embrace the cultural, ethnic historical culture of that region, and doing a spotlight on it. Yep. Hey, so glad you could stop by and correct me and go back and correct me on things that I've gotten wrong, but also the idea of like making it your own, and I think one of the things that I like about these, you know, one part history, one part culture, two parts fantasy of these are, sure, air quotes, someone could be doing it wrong, but at least they are giving praise in their own way, no matter how, air quotes, incorrectly they're doing it. They are delving into this, and much like what was it, like Dungeons and Dragons did a really bad, didn't do much research on like Oriental Adventures and Al-Qadim and things like that. Can you get it wrong? Yeah, you could get it wrong, but at least you're opening yourself to doing it, and then you can go further than that and go, hey, why don't we speak to the people that are part of that culture, or live that experience, or are historians of it, and then you go from there and go, okay, yeah, but how would we make that a game? Like, how do we? I understand this part. Like, for example, the big thing today are about like gender roles, right? Historically, there's some we have some pretty brutalistic ways when we categorize people who are other. We have a great way of brutalizing people who have been othered for any reason. And yes, we can put that in the game, but we also want people to buy the game and play it. And so, having a horrible experience playing a tabletop role-playing game for any reason shouldn't be. So then what's the exception? Well, we are exceptional. We tend to play exceptional characters, so maybe our characters are the exception, not the rule, right? And again, you can't police other people's imagination. So even if you hard code it into a game, yes, you must abide by these rules, stop, period, or whatever. If it's mine and I bought it, I can do whatever the hell I want with it. So yeah, for good or bad. There are some people out there who are role-playing their, dare I say, their internal racist dreams. And while I would prefer they don't do that, I can't police that, right? So anyway, we're going into more localized events, random encounters, what happens with encountering some of these monsters and tribes and other factions, and then example encounters and locations so that we can, figure out what this game is about. And like I was saying, this game is not about, if we ignore the dungeon crawling, this is not a traditional dungeon crawling game. The story happens along the way. So it's not, can we hurry up and get there? Yes, you can tell a story where you kind of hand wave the travel from A to B. But a lot of the game is not just about going from A to B. It's the things that happen on the way to going from A to B. Do you lose someone? Does something happen? Is someone injured? Do you meet a strange hag or a Norn or something like that, a muse along the way? Do you fight wolves? Is there some other enemy out there in the woods where you're trying to go to an important meeting or something? And then that becomes, the characters are tested physically, and then they're tested with their morality, they're tested with their honor and whatnot. These here are some example people in the locations. In Iskloft, there's plenty of actual plays for this game. I mean, this was tested over and over again. So, and the idea of it, I remember watching / listening to an actual play where they were sailing to a coastline and a character died like within the first 5 to 10 minutes, and they were just like, well, it happens. And I think it was almost like, should we stop the game now? And everybody was like, nah, let's keep going. Here's a brutal wound system, and yes, have fun embracing this. As a matter of fact, like in the OSR, having brutalistic wounds. What is it, Morkboard? You don't even get anything good from it, and they have that in Morkboard. This is the same thing. Like there are some modifiers. Like you could get a wound that basically you're honored for that wound that you have, even though it's like infected or something. Maybe I'm being a little bit too out there, but yeah, you can get a wound in battle that like severely, hurts your character, but other people are like, that's cool. You got hacked by that axe from like that was gifted by the ice giants or something. That's really cool. And you're sitting there with this like bleeding gash in your mouth, like, yep, that's bludgeoning limbs. So these are like wounds. Look at the long wound tables and the effects. And then there's like piercing wounds. Is it Rune Quest or something? That's all like brutal tables. Not as bad as that game Fatal, but slashing. These are slashing tables for wounds. And unarmed wound tables, getting punched and kicked and broken limbs and ribs, and then missile weapons. And then the glorious who sit in Valhalla, all the people who backed it. I'm in here somewhere. Let's see. I can't. Should be. I can't find my name. Hey, I played with him. I know him too. All right, guys. So let me get back to some of your comments here. Of course, there's an open game license. I'm going to go back to the. The picture, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it, and then I'm gonna let you go. Iskloft. Get back to your comments. There we go. That's funny. That's cool. I think if I were to, because I should have done this with the other emulators that we've emulators. Okay, maybe Drew hates that word. With the other cultural TTRPGs, blast you with some adventures, or how would I use it? So for Iskloft, what I would do is set up situations, and mind you, you don't have to force this, but set up situations where on the very surface there's something very simple to do. A fetch quest, a protection travel, a arrive at a particular time and date, a send a message, or something like that. Let the characters have to gather together and travel from place to place if you want to make it a travel log. Then, as you put things in their way, bring up situations where Drew says, "Indeed, I hate that word." Yeah. Indeed, the play situations where the characters are tested. So if a character is very honorable, set up a situation where they maybe have to make a tough decision concerning their honor. For example, there may be hated enemies between your location and where you need to go. And so, of course, these hated enemies, the rule is slay anybody from this particular faction. But when they get there, they are starving innocents. They're just farmers. They're diseased. They don't have any ability to fight. So, do you murder kill the innocent people or not? Now, some players might go, well, they told us we have to kill them, so we go ahead and kill them. But what if this brings bad omens, or sends a message that your PCs are not to be trusted, or a spirit that lives in these woods, or an old hag sees the player characters and is like, yeah, I'm going to take some revenge on them. Or maybe if the player characters question it a little bit, they gain a great ally who knows a deep, dark secret that, the Jarl of this place, who's had basically decreed these people should be eliminated because they're evil, was just like, nah, he had another family in another place, and is just like, all of this started because he was trying to cover a secret because he had a secondary family, and it had his first family killed and just accused them of being evil, but they weren't. They weren't possessed by spirits. He just wanted them murder killed. And the players are like, we were, you mean we did all this because of a lie? Protecting that dude? Like, what? And and then here comes the thing. Do you keep your promise and keep the lie? Or do you hold to your honor and tell the truth because you're a truth sayer or something? I'm just pulling shit out of my ass when it comes to this. And again, maybe there's even something more basic, right? Your player characters are keeping a nomadic group alive. That's it. And you're traveling from one brutal, cold place with no food and shelter to another brutal place with no food or shelter, but someone told you there is some food in there, and the seasons are changing, and you're just traveling with a group. And sure, maybe your characters are badasses, but not the people who are traveling with you. And then, of course, you can have conflicts that happen when traveling with a group. Do you go north or south? Do you go east or west? Is it a left turn or right turn? How long do you stay? How do you move? How fast can you move? What enemies or terrible things happen? Do you come across a great gorge and you have to go around it? Or figure out how to go down the ravine and up the other side? And who gets injured? And who do you leave behind or sacrifice if there is an important date to give a sacrifice? Can you even afford to sacrifice anything in the first place, right? Like, what was it in that random table? Sacrifice 3 pregnant cows, but you need those cows to stick around to help you get through the harsh winter. Do you sacrifice the cows to the gods, or do you like, F you Odin, you ain't helping me out now, right? Things like that. So yeah, I love it. And I like what was it, Mateo brought up Mateo Machu says, I like low magic settings. I do too. I'm an OSR fan, and so if is or isn't something magic, the answer could be very much yes. And so the players, when an old hag curses them, is she just talking out of her ass, or is it this a real curse? With this nomadic group and just protecting people to get from A to B, are you attacked by wolves? Do you leave the group to go on a hunt? Do you see something on that hunt in an open glade and given a message, or fighting an enemy, and then return to that same glade and it's as if nothing happened? All you see is blood and weapons and a dead body, but everyone else is like, you didn't fight any trolls. There were no giants over here. Get back to work. And the PC's like, no, I'm serious. There were giants here. No, I don't see anything. So anyway, thank you very much for letting me introduce or reintroduce Iskloft. We have traveled from Azteca. We're going to have to do a summary of this. So we've left Central America and the Aztecs and Mahuajito. We've gone into the central states of an uncolonized United States and the indigenous peoples. We've gone into the Caribbean with I got the book right here. Bora Cobos and the Caribbean islands and the people, the Tiano people, and Arawak, I believe, are the other people, and the bright colors and feathers of the tropical lands. Then we've come to the north in the Icelandic region. How about an Aztec Viking RPG? They're kind of similar if you think about it, right? Murder, killing, and sacrificing people and that kind of stuff. There's a little bit of that in the Viking culture as well, where the Aztecs start sailing to Europe and go around raping and pillaging everywhere. Hey, listen, we can't have multiple groups doing that at the same time. Everybody gets their turn. Yeah. Again, air quotes, problematic. And sure, if you're playing the protagonist, usually protagonists can be colored in any manner in which you prefer. I go back to the movie 300 with the 300 Spartans, right? They were the protagonists of that movie. We ignored some of the other issues that the Spartans were engaged in, but they were our protagonists. And so these games allow you to portray the protagonists and in such a way that they're right. You know, the Aztecs thought the gods would destroy the world if they were not honored, and the sacrifices of blood and human sacrifice were not given to them. And so, yeah, plot twist: the Aztecs arriving Europe during the Neolithic period and enthrall all the cavemen. You know, opposite things. Yeah, I mean, what was it? There's an old novel. Oh man, I know I'm reaching on this. I shouldn't bring it up, but there is one where ancient Japan became a exploratory culture and traveled around the world, and so the cinematized version of Japan invaded all the other cultures around the world, especially off their coastlines. Oh man. And then you got to go full on Quest for Fire against the Aztec conquerors. Quest for Fire, yeah, yeah. Great movie too. Great movie. Oh man. Oh, we can do. I do have a tabletop. It's a 5th edition mod. Uh, Stargazer's Guide to Plangea is a prehistoric Dungeons and Dragons. I'm going to say it, Drew. Close your ears, Drew. Emulator. No, it's a version of that. So yeah, maybe we might do that if we go further up north. I was trying to think of something Canadian, and I don't know of a specified cultural, indigenous Canadian styled role-playing game, either before or after colonization. So I don't have that. So we're probably going to go over into Europe, and because there's a different game that's more Scandinavian and Nordic. Vaesen and Symbaroum kind of fit that category. I don't know which one I'm going to highlight for that one. We also have, we're also going to go into Italy, and I believe there's a French game I have, and then we will hit the Mediterranean. We will go Africa and North Africa. I think I have two separate. I've got a separate one for North Africa, and then I have one for Deep Africa, and then we can go into the religious heartland of like Persia and Jerusalem and whatnot. Yeah, we're going to go all around. Will it show up? Yeah, Drew's like, thanks for staying in my top here, Drew. I appreciate it. Yeah, you can 13th warrior with an Aztec. Yep, there you go. Why not? Why the hell not? Shai says Japan or China. China definitely easily could have conquered everybody 2,000 years ago. Okay, maybe the Romans would have given them a hard time. Hope they kept their powder dry. Yeah. I even have a Alexander the Great comes back with something that deep and dark game that's free. That's free from World Anvil of all places. World Anvil has a free SRD OGL game out there, and they have one that involves Alexander the Great and what Alexander the Great found something, or was called to find something out there, and brought back a great evil. Yeah, we're going to go around the world. So if you guys have any ideas of a great role-playing game, whether the mechanics or the setting is unique, it doesn't have to be ancient, it doesn't have to be fantasy. Although most of us prefer something, because like the thumbnail says, not D&D. This is like, when I say not D&D, and I think some people might go, well, you're cheating because I'm picking 5th edition. Well, technically, no. What I'm saying is, it's not your traditional elves and dwarves. It's not a Tolkien-esque, it doesn't have a thin veil of Tolkien-esquity to it. Yeah, something like that. Yes, very much something like that. Yeah, we'll find that one. Let's see, we have to get there, so maybe we'll do. No. We're going to go to the Emerald Isles. We'll go to Ireland, and maybe we'll go to Ireland first. Maybe we'll do like Dolmenwood maybe first, and go northward. And then sweep back down north. I don't know. Anyway, we'll do a travelogue. Yeah, China, yes. Japan, no. Japan is only for millennium, somewhat formidable. Yeah. Well, hey, listen. in my fantasy, right? That's kind of in many of these games that are making the mythological and historical and ethnic fantasy. It is kind of like a nudge, nudge, wink. Like, come on, give us a chance, right? Give us a chance to be like the badass in our own minds. And so, yeah, Mistborn by Crafty Games had a lot of fun mechanics. Really? Okay. I thought See, the minute you say Mistborn, all I'm thinking about is Brandon Sanderson. Okay, the Aztecs convinced their alien gods to transport them to the future, and that's the drones showing up in New Jersey. Oh, so funny. It's so funny how like everyone was like, "What are these drones?" And all of a sudden they were just like, "Don't worry about it," and then people just stopped thinking about those drones because here in Central Ohio there are people reporting drones as well. Now, mind you, these could just be military tests, like very simplistic, like not watching people, not maybe it could be a test for a quick reaction kind of thing, which I think that's probably what it is, because I heard the drones are very big, so these could be quick reaction, like, hey, there's we're practicing for an attack on the United States, or the aftermath of a weather event or something like that, or like a nuclear fallout or an accident or something, whatever, and then quickly send up drones to get an overview instead of like helicopters and whatnot. That kind of sounds like what it is to me. I don't know if you should trust it, but it could be innocent in the sense that the people doing it feel like they're doing it for a good reason, if that makes sense. They're military tests by ancient Aztecs. Are you blaming all this on ancient Aztecs? Hey, all the fake birds, birds aren't real, or by Aztecs too. This is all one big play by the ancient Aztecs. They're like, you thought our culture was falling. It wasn't. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. I hope you're getting a little bit of kick out of it. And then also, it is February, and normally here in the States, February is Black History Month. I've done a whole series on Black History Month before in the channel. I didn't really want to rehash it, but I thought maybe I'd like to take some protagonists in their own history, culture, ethnicity, and how do you portray that in a tabletop role-playing game. So I thought I would grab some of these, and to also throw it in the face of the people who are just like, you're trying to be other because you're trying to pick people of color. And I'm like, no, I'm just a fan of histories and imagination and fantasy, and maybe we can get a lot more of that if we start embracing other people's cultures as well, including the differentiations of our here in the States, our cross pond brethren over there as well, and sisterin, that have their own cultures, right? So there's a lot of, here in the States, we kind of call Europe like one big giant melting pot, but there's a lot of differentiation over there throughout history and whatnot, and why not celebrate that as well? Yeah, crystal skulls, no tool marks. Yep, hence alien teleportation in the future. Is it funny how you just went from like one to like, of course it's teleportation to the future. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So guys, have a great one. I'll see you later, and see you next week. And we will talk about hell, what are we going to talk about next? We'll go through Europe, North Africa, Africa, and then we'll head east from there. Go through China, Mongolia, Russia, India, Thailand, Burma. We'll go through that place too as well. So guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace and tranquility. Bye.